A gangland murder in Belfast of the underworld's most wanted man. Hitman Robbie Lawler had countless enemies, but who ordered his death? This month, Crime World presents Double Cross, the murder of Robbie Lawler, a podcast series that will bring you right into the black heart of organised crime. Based on my new book, Web of Betrayal, we'll follow a bloody trail into the underworld and to the narco-style murder and dismemberment of teenager Cian Mulready Woods, which would set in motion the complex plot to take out Lawler. Listen as we lift the lid on the inner workings of Ireland's gangland, revealing a cast of ruthless characters who take centre stage for their place in this real-life double-cross thriller. Crime World presents Double Cross, coming soon to all podcast platforms. Web of Betrayal by me, Nicola Tallant, is now available on Audible and in all good bookstores. Now, we're going to go back to the beginning of the day, so we're slightly reversing. There was a number of other witnesses that were called by Nikita Hand's legal team. This involved DNA evidence, and it also involved sort of loss of earnings for her, because remembering this is a civil case. So do you want to go through each one of them and sort of briefly maybe tell us what they said? Because I think the next witness we should linger on a bit more is probably Danielle Keeley, who was with her on the day and who was called on behalf of Conor McGregor.
Yes.
So
the first witness we had was Charlotte Murphy for Forensic Science Ireland, and she's a forensic scientist with them. So she was there to give details of her report, of the conclusions she came to based on swabs that were taken. So there were swabs taken from Nikita Hand's vaginal area. There was swabs taken from her jumpsuit and her pants that she was wearing. And then there was also a DNA profile submitted by Conor McGregor and by Nikita Hand. And they were used to obviously compare against the DNA that was found on those various areas of her body. And obviously as well, as we will find out, they use Nikita Hand's DNA to establish what part of, there was a couple of mixed samples, so they were able to, use that to pull away her sample from the other DNA sample, which we do find out there was a bit of a sample of hers mixed with a sample of Conor McGregor's DNA. So the report found that from the swabs of the semen on and in Nikita Hand's vagina, it was 100 million times more likely than not that the DNA belonging to that semen belonged to Conor McGregor. So it was a match. The DNA was matched. The profile of the semen not just matched each other, but the profiles also matched Conor McGregor. There was also a mixed profile of male and female contributors, and all of the elements of that mixed profile were accounted for in both Conor McGregor and Nikita Hand. James Lawrence was eliminated as a possible contributor. And as well, there was semen found on the gusset in the back of her panties and at the front of her crotch. And there was also a trace of semen on the back crotch of the play suit. And on the front leg of the play suit, there was no semen found on the bra or the coat. The DNA profiles of the semen all matched each other, and they also matched the DNA profile of Conor McGregor. There was also a sample of DNA taken from the inside front of Nikita Hand's pants. There was a mixed profile found, and the major profile of this was Nikita Hand's DNA, and a minor portion of the DNA was actually unsuitable for interpretation, so they weren't able to get a DNA profile for that. Then she detailed the damage on Nikita Hand's clothing. So she said that Nikita Hand's clothing was examined, and the damage to that could be attributable to something that was beyond normal wear and tear. The straps of the play suit, there was a rip on the front of the play suit, which she said was not due to wear and tear, but was due to pulling. Then she was cross-examined, and she was asked if she had to understand the context of the DNA that she was taking samples of. And she said, yeah, with a sexual assault, they do require a background to see if there's any difference in what's been said by the accused and what's been said by the accuser. She then also said that the presence or absence of semen doesn't address the issue of consent. It's not possible to scientifically address that.
Okay.
The next witness we had on the stand was Patrick Sheehan, and he was a property valuer who works for a company called Independent Valuations. And he was brought into the case because Nikita Hand is seeking costs to move away from Drumna. She owns a property in Drumna with her ex-partner. He said it's a 3-bed house, but really it's a 3-bed house, but there's only 2 because one was being used as a dressing room. There's also a rear extension on the home, and it was valued at about 430,000 this June. He was then said that with moving, you would also have to include estimates for things like stamp duty, moving costs, and estate agents' fees. He then looked at prospective properties, similar properties outside of Drumna, and he said he looked at properties in Cabinteely and Shankill. He said that he looked at a number of different properties in these areas, and of something similar, of a property like that, similar to her own in a different area, would be anything over 500,000 and anything less than 700,000 euro. And that was the end of that. He didn't have any cross-examination. The next person on the stand was John McMahon, who was a co-owner of the hairdressing salon where Nikita Hand worked. He was on the stand just to confirm that Nikita Hand worked there, the amount of time she worked there, when she returned to work after the alleged events of December 2018, to which he said that she struggled when she was there. She worked for 4 days a week, but she struggled. She became less reliable. She said there was no shows sometimes as well, up to 2 days a week, and eventually she left. He said that she had competed in the L'Oreal hairdressing competition, which we've heard a lot about during this trial. It's something he said it was the most prestigious colouring competition in Ireland, and Nikita Hand was going to compete in 2019. He said that she wasn't overly ambitious. She was doing colour for other hairstylists. She hadn't really built up her own clientele at that point, but there's no sign that she wouldn't have done so. She would have moved then at that point from a basic salary to a different kind of salary where she would have earned a lot more money. And again, in relation to tips, he said they were based on personal relationships. He said €100 a week, which is what he had said she would have gotten, is low enough, but it can take a number of years to build up a bit of a clientele. Then the cross-examination, it was put to him that Miss Hand took 3 years off after the birth of her daughter, and he said yes. I was then put to him that she was working part-time, and he said yes, she was there 4 days a week, but 4 days was considered part-time in hairdressing. Then the next witness we hear from is Miss Breen, and she's a vocational assessor, and she explained that it's her job she's an occupational therapist, and she examines people in relation to sustaining employment, returning to work, that sort of thing. She first met Miss Hand in 2020, and she said that at this point she had symptoms of PTSD and psychological difficulties. She was then asked about Nikita Hand's educational history, and she said that she had her junior cert and her leaving cert, and then after her leaving cert she pursued an apprenticeship from 2007 to 2011 where she specialised in colour, and at that point as well she would have got sort of more add-on training. So she was an expert colourist. She said after the events of 2018 she went back to work, but she struggled greatly with panic attacks. She lost the ability to communicate with her clients, and she said work became an intolerable place for her to be. She said when somebody's unwell, they usually don't hand in a notice. So Nikita Hand handed in her notice that she was going to leave. She said that was unusual because people like that usually take sick leave. But she said that upon reviewing Nikita Hand and asking about her ambitions, she said that her ambitions at that time were to continue working where she was working. She was very happy in her job. She had an interest in doing the L'Oreal competition, and she really enjoyed working where she was working in that salon, but she said she had anxiety, panic attacks, because it was a customer facing role. She found it very challenging to continue working, and it was established that she was not fit for competitive employment. She then advised her to retrain in something that wasn't customer facing. She met her again in 2024, and at this point she had been awarded a disability allowance, but you could work up to earn a certain amount of money without it interfering with that payment from the social welfare. She made 2 attempts to go back to work. She went back in 2023 in February. She got a job at a cleaning agency where she was working 2 hours every morning, Monday to Friday. But in December of 2023, she left that job. She said that she was calling in saying she was sick, but she was and she'd been declared as well as unfit to work. Nikita Hand felt that job was a stepping stone for her to help return to work because she didn't have to deal with the public. The second time she attempted to go back to work was in February of 2024, and this was in a different hair salon in Walkinstown, and it was in walking distance from her home, and she could also work within the confinements of her disability allowance. So she worked 1 long day and 1 half day, but it was extremely anxiety provoking for her, and she had to leave after 6 weeks. the doctor certified her as unfit once again. When asked if she was ever be fit to return to what she was doing prior to the alleged incident in 2018, she said no, she needs to have a safe and predictable environment where she doesn't have to deal face to face with people. A benign work routine, something again that was very safe, very predictable. Asked if she were to secure some sort of part-time admin work, what kind of money could she earn? And she said it would depend on if she went in entry level, she would get a set amount. And as she goes up through different training, she could train in something like diary management or data entry. And at that point, she could earn more money. So then there's a cross-examination from Conor McGregor's legal team. It's put to her that she was referred to, Nikita Hand was referred to her through Nikita Hand's own solicitor, and she agreed. When asked what reports she had to hand, she said that she had the medical reports and the SATU notes, and that it was put to her as well that in 2017 and 2018, Nikita Hand had regularly been with the doctor in relation to a road traffic accident because she had back pain with that, and also anxiety. It was put to her that she might have difficulty holding dryers and brushes due to this injury. And she said, yes, she did have those reports, but people do recover from something like that. She said that the job she was in was very triggering for her, being a hairdresser. She said when confidence goes and you have anxiety like that, it will be difficult to return to a hair salon. So then the next witness on the stand was an actuary, and his name was Peter Byrne, and it was his role to provide calculations for future loss of earnings. So that's what he specialises in. And the reason he was doing this is because the court said it needed to establish her net loss per week. So this would be the difference in what Nikita Hand would have earned had she not been injured versus what she currently earns now. So he assessed her financial loss based on the fact she would have been earning €450 per week gross with €100 in tips. And if she had continued in her role and been promoted, she would have got €800 per week gross and approximately €100 in tips. So he then had to calculate two separate loss of earnings based on that. So the first calculation he did was based on loss of earnings from today's date onwards. And he based this on the Irish Life's assumptions and mortality table, basically, of what age you might be assumed to retire at. So he based this and said if she had her loss of earnings, should she continue not to work at all between today's date and the date of her predicted retirement, would be €962,665. If she took on a role as part-time in administration, her loss would be considered something around €575,868. The second calculation he did was based on her past loss of earnings. So he said that these assumptions again were that she was earning €450 per week gross, €100 tips. And if she continued that role, now she'd be on €800 gross with €100 tips. He said that the potential calculation of loss between the 10th of December in 2018 and August of 2024 would be about €174,885 after tax. This, of course, doesn't reduce any net earnings she's had in that time or any deductibles, benefits like that. Exactly. So then there's a cross-examination and she's asked, had she remained at the same level? Would her salary have stayed the same, even with inflation? Not up to she said yes, and it's put to him that not up to the point of €800. And he said the €800 is based on the assumptions that she would have progressed and got a promotion, not based on inflation. It was then put to him that she took 3 years off as her daughter was born and wanted more children, and was asked would that affect her earnings, and he said yes. It was then put to him that the figures are based on the fact that she worked part-time 20 hours a week, and he said yes, and there was no further cross from James Lawrence's legal team. However, the judge did have some questions. The judge, we heard in previous evidence from her employer that she would have earned €400 a week, not $450. So we had to redo those calculations. So it brought her loss to date to €136,122 and her future loss to €494,550. And if she had worked in that part-time admin role, the future loss would be €198,441. And again, these figures were based on what she would have earned if on the same wage from 2018 and not in relation to inflation. And at this point, Nikita Hand's legal team rest their case. But of course, we're not finished.
They rest their case. So 6 days it has taken for Nikita Hand's case to be presented before the court, before the jury of 8 women, 4 men, and Justice Alexander Owens. So the next thing that happens is the McGregor case will be put towards the court. And obviously we started this podcast with McGregor himself, because that felt like, the probably the biggest moment of the day within that court case. But before he got on the stand, he calls 2 witnesses, one of whom is the Garda who we referred to,
yes,
who spoke about that door and whether it could be opened or not. The second one is the witness Danielle Keeley, who we've heard about throughout this case because she is the hairdresser that Nikita Hand was with on the night of the Christmas party the following morning when she was contacting McGregor. And she's the girl who goes with her to the Beacon Hotel. And we've heard evidence around her activities in the hotel and, relations she's said to have had with James Lawrence. So she is there for Conor McGregor as a witness.
Yes, so she is called by Conor McGregor's legal team. So she goes on the stand and she spoke about her relationship with Nikita Hand. She said she didn't know her well. She worked in the same franchise of salon, but in a different salon. So she worked in the one in Nace. Nikita Hand worked in the one in Goatstown. She said she kind of knew her from training days. Those training days didn't happen very often. And she hadn't been at a Christmas party with her before. So it was Conor McGregor's legal team. Mr. Farrell goes straight in asking about the 8th of December. She said that they went to Airfield. When asked what it was like, she said it was a big Christmas party. There was loads of other parties there. They were there for a few hours, but they left early and went to the Goat pub, which was straight across the road from the salon. She listed the names of some people that were there. And she was asked, did she remember the name of Conor McGregor being mentioned at any time during the evening? And she said it wasn't until they were at the salon after the Goat had closed that she remembers that. When asked who went to the salon, she said she doesn't remember. Danielle said Nikita was chatting to Conor McGregor on Instagram. She said she didn't see the messages or know the specifics of their conversation. In the early hours in the morning, we were going to go out to him, she said. It was then asked of her, had she seen any of the CCTV footage or the stills from the Gardaí, and she said no. It was then asked of her if she had, the plan was that Mr. McGregor would come to the salon, and she agreed with that. She was then asked if she remembers any phone calls between Nikita and Conor McGregor, and she said no. She said he collected us at the salon. We drove around for a while, went back to the hotel. He was in the back. She said it was a black car and there was somebody driving, and she got into the back of it. She doesn't recall what was spoken about in the car. She only remembers a little bit. She said they stopped at 2 houses, she believes. She thinks the second house was where James came from, and they went into the hotel. Mr. Farrell asks, did James have shoes on? And she said, I didn't remember. She was asked, did she know what the hotel was or where it was? And she said no. She was then asked if somebody went to reception to get the key. She said yes, she thought it was the driver. She was asked, where were you when he went to the reception? She said she didn't know. As questioning continued, she said she didn't know if it was possible to close the door between the 2 rooms. So again, we're back to this sitting room, bedroom. She said the mood was fine. Everyone was fine. Everyone was in good form. Was there drink in the room, she was asked. She said yes. She thinks it was vodka brought to the room. And she thinks at this point there was security guards were in the room across from there. So we heard this from the detective Garda. They were in another room, room 718. She was then asked if Conor and Nikita went into the other room, and she said yes. She was asked if she could tell the court about that, and she says, I don't know. She was asked, you know what happened in that room? And she said no. Danielle then said that Nikita came out and said everything was fine. Nobody was in bad form or anything, and she didn't notice that anything had happened. She was asked if anyone seemed upset. She said no. She was asked if she noticed any physical marks or injuries on Nikita, and she said no. She was asked if she seen a bite on Conor McGregor's face. She said no. Asked if there's any injuries on Miss Hand, and she said she didn't notice. Then she was asked when was it decided people would leave, and she said when they all woke up. She then was asked if she was in the sitting room with James and if she was intimate with James during that period, and she said yes. She was asked if she had sex with James. She said yes. And she was asked if condoms were used, and she also agreed with that. Danielle said that her phone was broken, and she asked Conor if she could get a lift home with him because she knew he lived in Kildare. He didn't agree to bring her at the start. She then asked his driver, and she agreed to do so. She was asked what Nikita was going to do at this point, and she thought that she was going to get into the other car and go home. She was then asked if you could tell the court about how she left the hotel, and she said she left in a lift that brought them straight down to the car park. It was put to her that herself and Conor were together in one car, and she said yes. She was asked if she said goodbye to Nikita. She said she did. Nikita came over and gave her a hug. She wanted everyone to stay. It was put to her that Nikita wanted to stay to continue the party, and she said she doesn't remember. Then she was asked when she next heard from Nikita Hand, and she said, I think it was a few days later. She got a text through Instagram, and then she rang her. Asked what she said when she made contact with Danielle again. She said that Nikita had said that she had been raped. Danielle said she was surprised because she didn't see anything. She was then asked if she was told to delete texts, and she said yes, she was told to delete the chat. And she rang when she was in the rotunda saying that she had been raped. And she had said to Nikita, I didn't see or hear anything. This moment we go to lunch. We come back then to the CCTV footage. And it's put to her that it was some time ago. She said she can't remember, but she can see what's going on in the CCTV. Then Mr. Farrell said that he wasn't going to offer a description himself of the mood or the atmosphere in the lift, but asked her what it was. And she said it was all good. Everyone was in a good mood. The good mood continued throughout the afternoon. Then the CCTV footage, we see people going back down on the lift, and she is asked about, in terms of the mood, was it different or similar to before? And she said it was the same. Then we can see CCTV of her in the basement of the car park that shows her and McGregor walking towards the car. And she described that this hug happened with Miss Hand at the car. She was asked if Miss Hand didn't want to leave, and she said yes, it was correct. And she was asked, how did Nikita Hand convey that to you that she didn't want to leave? And she said that she couldn't remember at the time. Did she say anything to Mr. McGregor about leaving? And Danielle said that she couldn't remember. She then asked if she made a statement to the Gardaí, to which she said she did. It was then put to her that she told them about getting a text from Miss Hand the following day. She said yes. I don't remember if it was the next day or if it was a few days later. So so this was a separate bit of questioning. So she was asked if she had given a statement. She said yes. And then there was a reference back to earlier on in the testimony where she said she got a text the next day from Miss Hand. And she said, yeah, I don't know if it was the next day or a few days later. I never spoke to her or seen her again. In the run up to the court case, it was asked if Miss Hand had made contact with her, and she said no. She was asked if her lawyers contacted you, and she said yes, that she had been subpoenaed to the court. And she was asked if her team had asked about her account of the events, and she said that she can't remember. Then there was cross-examination from James Lawrence's legal team.
From James Lawrence's legal team?
Yes. So they put it to her that she had sex with him 3 times. She said no, it was once, and there was a condom used. She was then asked if she could hear Nikita and Conor having sex, and she said, and saying she's going to regret that because she just bought a house with her boyfriend, to which she didn't respond. Then it was put to her that she told James that she wouldn't have sex with him unless they had condoms, and she said yes. So it was put to her that the security man went and got them, and she agreed with that. Then it was put to her that she was on a sofa bed in the front room, and that Miss Hand was going in and out, and that she didn't in any way feel distressed. And she said that she said that it didn't appear that she was distressed. It was asked for then if she was going in and out, and she said she can't remember if she was going in and out of the room during sex, but she didn't appear distressed. Not that she noticed that she appeared distressed. It was then put to her that Mr. Lawrence was at her stomach, and Nikita made a lewd comment, to which she said she didn't remember. Yeah. At the beginning of cross-examination, they just wanted to establish where she was sitting in the car. So Danielle was behind the driver's seat, Nikita was in the middle, and Conor was behind the passenger seat. Discussing what happened in the car, it was put to her that she had an issue with Conor McGregor, and she said she didn't like him at the start, and asked why, what was the problem. She said she doesn't remember. She was asked if she remembers going to the house of James Lawrence, and she said yes. He was picked up and was asked did they have cocaine in the car, and she agreed that herself, Nikita, Conor and James had cocaine in the car. It was put to her that she initially told Gardaí that they had fallen asleep and that James hadn't tried anything with her in the room. But it was then put to her that she changed her statement, and she said, yes, she didn't think her having sex with James was anything to do with the case. She was asked if she heard or seen anything. She said no. She was asked if she had a statement taken by Nikita Hand's solicitors, and she said no, it was only the Gardaí that took her statement. Then it was put to her that she spoke to Gardaí on a second occasion and they met her at a hotel on the 13th of January and she agreed that yes, that had happened. She was asked if she had been contacted by Mr. Lawrence's solicitors and she said no. And what about Mr. McGregor's solicitors? And she said yes. She said that they contacted her around COVID and she didn't make a statement to them. So that was the end of her cross-examination. It's at this point then we have Conor McGregor on the stand.
In the stand. He will continue in the stand. We don't know how long he's going to be in the stand, but nonetheless.
He will continue in the stand under cross-examination. And of course, as well, his legal team will have a chance to do rebuttal.
So has there been more interest in it from the public?
Yes, there seems to be more people there. There's also a court artist there who is drawing. Of course, no cameras allowed in the courtroom. So he's drawing Conor McGregor on the stand, giving his evidence yesterday as well. And there is definitely more of an interest from the public. This morning, for the first time going in, I was asked for identification. I was asked if I was in the public or in the media. And that then there was a lot of people in the back of the room standing up. The case is now going into day 7. So it is expected that it was expected it would end this week, but it's now the expectation that it may go into next week.
And as always, thank you so much for the comprehensive reporting, because you make us feel as if we were there for the day with the evidence. So thank you very much, Clodagh Meaney.
Thank you.
I'm Nicola Tallant and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.